My family skipped my biggest moment. Not a birthday, not a promotion, my wedding. 4 empty chairs in the front row, the ones reserved for them, stared back at me, harder than any guest ever could. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a single message, a reason, anything. Nothing came, just silence. Then a week later, when the news announced my hotel chain hit a $100 valuation, my phone finally lit up. Dad. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. And that was the moment I understood. They didn't want to celebrate with me, only to claim something from me. So I showed up with the one thing they never expected. My name is Rose, and for most of my life, I thought loyalty could make a family feel like home. I tried so hard to believe it, even when every sign told me otherwise. Growing up, our house in Madison looked ordinary enough from the street: a sagging porch swing, a cracked driveway, the faint smell of my mother's lavender cleaner drifting out the windows. But inside, everything revolved around my father's idea of legacy. Gregory ran a string of aging motels he treated like royal estates. He spoke about them the way some men speak about their children. I used to think that was love. I learned later it was ownership. He loved control, not people, and he taught the rest of the family to orbit him. My mother, Helena, was the emotional enforcer. She didn't raise her voice. She raised guilt. If Dad wanted something, she softened the edges with tears. "Your father's stressed," she'd say. "Don't make him worry. Be grateful." After a while, you stop questioning why your gratitude is always measured in silence. Marcus. My older brother mirrored Dad's swagger. He believed real value only existed in brick and dirt. "Hotels are risky," he said the year I opened my first location. "It's all trend and fluff. Real property doesn't need branding." He said it while standing in front of one of Dad's motels where the flickering vacancy sign buzzed like a dying fly. And then there was Dylan, my younger brother, who floated through life like it owed him a soft landing. He called himself an influencer, though he couldn't influence himself to keep a job longer than a week. Still, he always had opinions about how I should manage success. Conveniently, those opinions involved me fixing whatever financial mess the family had created. Maybe that's why, as I built my career, I learned to dress down around them. Neutral sweaters, simple pants, no jewelry except a small band my husband gave me when we were still dating. I didn't want to trigger the endless comments, "Don't get arrogant," or the requests, "Could you help cover this month's bills?" Looking back, I realized I was shrinking myself so their egos didn't feel threatened. What they never knew was how hard those early years had been. The nights I slept in my car because rent was a luxury I couldn't afford. The way I taught myself every inch of the hospitality business, from unclogging bathroom drains to negotiating contractor quotes. The fear of losing everything before it ever became something. Dad dismissed it all. "Your model is unstable," he said. "Too modern, too digital. Real business needs land." But the moment that finally cracked something in me was my wedding. I had begged them for one day, just one, to show up not as critics, not as people who needed something from me, but as family. When they didn't walk through those doors, I felt something inside me fall quiet. Not broken, just done. Still, a part of me kept hoping for softness, a chance to be proven wrong, a chance to believe they cared. So when Dad texted me after the valuation hit the news, I stared at his message longer than I should have of. Family dinner. Important discussion. Maybe, just maybe, they wanted to make it right. But the moment I stepped into that country club, I knew exactly why they suddenly remembered I existed. The morning the valuation hit the news, I was in my office overlooking downtown Madison, reviewing renovation plans for our next property. Sunlight spilled across the conference table, catching the edge of a silver frame holding my wedding photo, the one where my husband's hand rests gently over mine, trying to anchor me while 4 seats behind us stayed painfully empty. Ava burst through the door without knocking, breathless in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. "Rose," she said, holding up her tablet, "you need to see this." There it was, a headline stretching across every major business outlet: "Independent hotel chain surpasses $100 valuation." The number didn't shock me. I'd seen it in our projections, tracked it month by month. But the world reacting to it that made my breath catch. My staff trickled in, clapping, congratulating, hugging. Ava brought out a bottle of sparkling cider she'd been hiding for months for the day you finally believe you did this. I laughed, but it felt strange. Pride and grief can sit in the same chest without touching, like two neighbors who refuse to speak. I should have called my parents, or maybe they should have called me years ago when I begged them to see me, not my usefulness. My phone lit up nonstop. Investors, partners, old classmates, even an old boss who once told me I was too polite to lead. But not my family, not a single word. It shouldn't have mattered, but something in me still waited for that one message that never came for someone to say I'm proud of you without adding a condition. By late afternoon, the office quieted. The celebration ended. Ava left me with a small smile and a stack of updated reports. I stayed behind watching the city shift from gold to blue as lights flickered on across the skyline. Then it happened. My phone buzzed. Dad's name. For a second, everything in me stilled. No apology, no acknowledgement, just the message. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion, not a question. A summons. I read it again, hoping I missed something. A warm note. A sign they remembered the wedding. Anything human. But the words sat on the screen like a demand. Ava was gathering her things when she noticed my face. "Let me guess," she said softly. They resurfaced. I handed her the phone. She exhaled slowly. They want something. People don't schedule important discussions out of love. I already knew she was right. I just didn't know how right. Not yet. But when I typed back, "I'll be there," a calm I didn't recognize settled over me. Because for the first time, I wasn't walking into their world unarmed. I pulled into my driveway that evening with Dad's text still glowing in my mind. Family dinner at 7 p.m., important discussion. It was the kind of message he'd send to an employee, not a daughter. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of the wedding they skipped or the milestone I'd reached. Just a directive. Inside my garage, the quiet felt heavier than usual. My SUV's headlights swept across the storage shelves where I kept old binders from the early days, spreadsheets printed at midnight, handwritten notes from contractors who barely took me seriously back then. They reminded me how hard I'd fought to build something no one thought I could. I found myself reaching for one of the binders marked early loans. I flipped it open on the hood of the car, scanning the figures, tight margins, endless nights, and the terrifying gamble that somehow paid off. If I could carry myself through that, I could walk into one family dinner. But something gnawed at me. Why now? Why this sudden urgency? Ava called just as I shut the garage door. Her voice was calm, but there was tension beneath it. I dug into something she said, about your dad's motels. I felt my stomach tighten. What about them? They're in trouble, Rose. Serious trouble. Overdue payments, unpaid. Contractors, months of negative cash flow. And there's more, one of the lenders is preparing to liquidate. Of course the timing wasn't a coincidence. They don't want to talk, Ava continued. They want a bailout. For a moment, anger surged hot through my chest, but it wasn't loud or explosive. It was cold, focused. The kind of anger that makes you breathe slower, not faster. The kind that decides things. What are you thinking? Ava asked. I'm thinking, I said slowly. We should get ahead of this. She understood instantly. You want the debt. I want the leverage. I corrected. By the next morning, Ava had mapped out every loan tied to the motels. Some were small, others staggeringly mismanaged. But one thing became clear. Gregory's empire wasn't just crumbling, it was already dust. He just needed someone else to sweep it up for him. And apparently, that someone was supposed to be me. We spent hours reviewing payments, bills, contracts, records, everything that painted a picture of a sinking ship held together by denial. Ava contacted the lender. The lender, eager to offload a failing account, was more than willing to negotiate. By late afternoon, the acquisition was in progress. That evening, as I dressed for the dinner, something shifted in me. I didn't choose the soft sweaters I wore around them. I chose a dark silk blouse, a clean blazer, hair pulled back. Not flashy, but unmistakably controlled. Present. Capable. On my desk, Ava placed a neatly prepared folder. Everything you'll need, she said, including options for restructuring and termination. I looked at her. Are you sure we're doing the right thing? You're not hurting them, she said gently. You're just ending the cycle. As I walked out the door, I realized she was right. This wasn't revenge. This was an exit. And the moment they asked me for help, I'd finally get to show them who they were asking. I showed up with the one thing they never expected: clarity. Not anger, not desperation, not the old version of me who tried to earn a place at their table. Just the truth, and the documents that proved it. The country club parking lot was already half full when I pulled in. Warm yellow lights glowed from the tall windows, washing the manicured hedges in a soft sheen. I sat in my SUV for a moment, breathing in the leather scent and the faint citrus of the air freshener, letting the calm settle. I wasn't here to fight. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to end it. Inside, a hostess greeted me with a bright smile that dimmed instantly when she recognized my parents' last name. "They're already seated," she whispered, as if warning me. "Back room." Of course. Dad loved privacy when he planned to corner someone. The moment I stepped into the private dining room, 4 pairs of eyes latched onto me. Dad leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. Mom offered a trembling smile meant to look warm. Marcus smirked like I'd arrived late to someone else's meeting. Dylan lifted a glass of iced tea in a lazy salute. Victor, the uncle, who always appeared when money was involved, sat beside Dad, hands folded like a consultant ready to pitch. Dad didn't even say hello. He gestured at the empty seat. "Sit, we need to talk." I didn't move. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I thought." Mom clutched her pearls dramatically. "Rose, don't start with that tone. This is a family dinner." I finally walked forward, placed my bag beside my chair, and sat down, calm, composed. Feeling their expectations pressing against the air like humidity, Dad cleared his throat. "We're in a situation," he began. "The motels, well, they've hit a rough patch. Nothing we can't fix with the right infusion of capital." There it was. The reason for the text. The reason for the sudden interest. Marcus jumped in. "We know your business is doing well, overvalued probably, but still strong. You could help stabilize things. For the family. For the legacy," Dad added. Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate, honey. We were humiliated when we heard about the valuation from strangers. Why didn't you tell us?" I let that hang for a beat. "Why didn't I tell them?" "Maybe because they hadn't spoken to me since the wedding." Dylan leaned over the table. "Look, don't be sensitive about the past. We're here now, right? Let's just fix this together." I opened my bag slowly. Their eyes followed the motion like a pack of wolves expecting meat. They thought I brought a checkbook. They thought I came to save them. Instead, I placed the folder Ava prepared in the center of the table and slid it toward Dad. He frowned. "What's this reality check?" I said. "And a reminder." He opened it and scanned the first page. His face drained of color. Marcus leaned in. Dylan froze. Mom's breathing hitched. "What is this supposed to mean?" Dad demanded, voice rising. "You wanted a bailout," I said calmly. "But that debt, the one drowning your motels, it's not the bank's problem anymore." Marcus flipped through the papers. "This is acquisition paperwork." Victor swallowed. "You bought the debt?" I nodded once. "Through a holding subsidiary. Legally, cleanly, quietly. As of this afternoon, every loan tied to the motels belongs to me." Dad slammed the folder shut. "You think this is funny?" "What gives you the right, the lenders?" I cut in. They were thrilled to offload a failing asset. They practically rushed the signatures. Mom gasped a hand to her mouth. "Rose, how could you? How could I?" What I said softly. "Make sure your sinking ship doesn't take me down with it." Dad rose halfway from his chair, finger stabbing the air. "If you walk out that door without helping us, then you are no daughter of mine." The room went dead silent. Even the waiter outside paused. I stood up too, but slowly, controlled. Years of swallowed pain, minimized success, cheap guilt trips, they all lined up behind me like invisible witnesses. "I didn't walk away," I said. "You did. You skipped my wedding. You ignored my life. You only appear when you need something." Dad's jaw clenched. "We're your family." "And I'm not your rescue plan," I replied. I opened a smaller envelope and placed a single check on the table. "This is a buyout. $200,000, enough for you to walk away clean, 30 days to vacate the properties. After that, I restructure." Marcus grabbed the check. "You're kicking us out of our own motels." "They're not yours," I said. "They haven't been for months." The debt swallowed the equity long before I stepped in. Dylan shook his head, muttering, "This is insane." Victor's voice broke. "You're ending your father's legacy." "No," I said. "I'm ending his control." Mom began crying softly. "We just wanted to talk. You wanted money," I said, "but you never wanted me." The words didn't come from anger. They came from clarity. From a place so quiet inside me, it almost scared me. Dad's voice cracked for the first time in my life. "Rose, don't do this." I looked at him, really looked at him. A man who built a prison out of his own pride. A man who believed love was currency. A man who thought I still needed his approval to breathe. "I already did," I said. I gathered my bag and the empty envelope. Ava stepped into the doorway right on cue, holding backup copies of every document. Her presence alone made the room shrink around them. "If you have any questions," she said to the table, "direct them to our office, preferably in writing." Dad sank into his seat. Marcus cursed under his breath. Dylan stared at the table like it betrayed him. Mom reached out a trembling hand toward me, but I stepped back. "Rose," she whispered, "please, don't leave like this." I met her eyes. "I begged you," once I said, "at my wedding." Then I turned and walked out. Their voices rose behind me, shouting, panicking, scraping chairs, but none of it touched me. The hallway felt brighter, the air cleaner, the weight gone. Outside, the night was cool and the sky wide open. My phone buzzed once Ava texting, "Proud of you." For the first time in years, I believed it. I wasn't losing a family tonight. I was reclaiming myself. The next morning, sunlight streamed across my kitchen counter, catching on the folder I'd tossed there after leaving the country club. For the first time in years, it didn't look like a burden. It looked like a clean break, paper-proof of a boundary I should have drawn long ago. Ava called around 9. "Transition went through," she said. "You officially control every asset tied to the motels. Their access ends today." I breathed out slowly. Not triumph, not regret, just release. Over the next few weeks, the transformation began. Contractors toured the properties. Designers walked through with tablets, taking notes for what would become wellness retreats. Calm, intentional spaces, the exact opposite of the chaos they once represented. Each time I stepped onto a site, the air felt lighter, as if the buildings themselves were relieved to be seen, finally through honest eyes. My family didn't call, not once. Rumors circled back to me, anger from Marcus, denial from Dad, tears from Mom. Dylan posted vague quotes online about betrayal, though he never mentioned my name. For the first time, their reactions didn't pull me backward. They simply existed, separate from me. One afternoon while reviewing final design boards, I caught my reflection in the window. Blazer hair tied back, expression steady. A woman who wasn't hiding her success to make others comfortable. A woman who no longer mistook manipulation for love. I realized something then. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply stopped participating. The motel-turned-retreat would open in spring, a quiet rebirth built on truth instead of demand. And I understood finally that walking away wasn't abandonment. It was protection. Not just from them, but for myself. In the end, it wasn't the $100 valuation that changed everything. It was the moment I realized I didn't need a family who only remembered me when they needed saving. Real love doesn't demand silence. Real loyalty doesn't vanish on your biggest day. Walking out of that country club, I didn't lose anything. I reclaimed the part of myself they taught me to bury. And if you've ever had to step away from people who called their control care, you know exactly how freeing that moment can be. If this story reached you, share it, comment, and subscribe for more.